Orbiting the giant hairball. It sounds like a cute fable, right? But orbiting the giant hairball is actually a diagnostic warning. It literally names the daily bargains we make with our own potential. Welcome to this explainer of Gordon Mackenzie's masterpiece. This book, Orbiting the Giant Hairball, asks one brutal, fundamental question. What if the system isn't actually stealing your creativity? What if you keep willingly handing it over? We're going to explore Gordon Mackenzie's diagnostic framework today, and as we dive into Orbiting the Giant Hairball, you'll see it isn't about escaping your reality. It's about mastering it. Just listen to this quote. Your best ideas are circling the drain of a calendar you keep defending. Ouch, right? But this is the visceral reality for so many creators, strategists, and managers out there. You know exactly the calendar we're talking about here. It's that meeting that just eats your entire morning. It's that multi-stage approval chain that methodically sands all the sharp edges off your original work. It's the polite corporate nod that implicitly says, hey, be original, but please stay perfectly legible. So, why do we call it loyalty when it honestly feels like shrinkage? Pleasing this system so easily becomes a form of gravitational compliance. It starts out as just good manners, but then it hardens into your actual taste. And eventually, it ends as a life where your absolute best work sounds completely pre-approved. So what exactly is this hairball? Well, the hairball isn't evil. It's really just tangled history. It's the habits, the rules, the inside jokes, and the embedded fears of an institution. It protects what once worked, and then it wraps itself tightly around what could work next. And the tragedy here is very quiet. You don't wake up feeling fake, you just wake up feeling useful. And eventually, useful becomes your permanent mask. This book brilliantly illustrates why creative scarcity rarely feels like an absence of ideas. Because scarcity isn't empty space. It's crowded allegiance. It feels like intense pressure. It feels like moving at maximum speed. It feels like a completely full inbox pressing right up against your ribs. We so often mistake this high-speed motion for proof of creative life, when really, it's just the feeling of being needed from all sides.
Section 1. The False Promise of Escape.
We've all said this, I can do original work once I get out of the corporate mess. It sounds pretty wise, doesn't it? But this book reveals it as a total trap. Because if your definition of freedom requires leaving, the hairball still defines your compass. Your work remains a mere reaction to the system. You're still letting the system own the center of your universe. We often think we only have two doors to walk through. Door 1, quit the system entirely. Or door 2, comply with the system completely. One looks brave, and the other looks like being a mature adult. But here's the thing. Both options are losing hands. Both mistakenly put the hairball right at the center of the sun. Both turn your creative work into nothing more than a reaction to an external force. But the way out isn't out. The way out is orbit. This is the vital third option presented in this book. Orbit is distance with motion. It's not compliance, and it's certainly not exile. Orbiting lets you stay close enough to contribute and draw resources from the system, but it keeps you moving fast enough so you are never fully digested by it. You protect your contribution without suffering capture. Think of it like a musical string. No tension, no sound. If there's too much tension, the string breaks. If you remove all the constraints and have too little tension, the note simply dies. Your creative work demands perfectly tuned distance. Not rage against the machine, not blind obedience, but a tuned, vibrant distance.
Section 2. The Art of Orbiting.
Now, orbiting isn't just a mood, it's a strict method. First, you have to name the hairball. Second, name its gravitational pull. What exactly does it reward, and what does it mock? And third, you absolutely must ask yourself, what part of you bows before it even speaks? What part of yourself are you voluntarily surrendering just to get clearance from the room? And here is the hidden, terrifying cost. You can leave a company and keep its court inside you. The hairball truly wins when it moves from being a physical corporate structure into an internal reflex. It trains your first impulse. Soon enough, the censor speaks before the creator even arrives. You might think you're just polishing your work, but you may just be dressing up fear in clean shoes.
Where do you confuse being understood with being alive? Think about it. You might have trained your own imagination to be easy to manage, softening your bold ideas for an imaginary audience just so they won't be rejected.
This right here is the anchor of this book, a loose orbit around the hairball, a living curve. And this living curve proves itself not by generating dramatic workplace conflict, but by the quiet act of returning. It comes back to the work after doubt. It comes back to the work after a lukewarm meeting. The orbit is about moving while being watched without losing your signature.
Section 3. Drawing your invisible boundary.
If the orbit is only a thought in your head, I promise you, the hairball will eat it by Thursday. Your boundary has to be entirely visible on your calendar through micro-actions. Keep one project unapproved until it actually has a pulse. Leave 1 hour before the machine assumes you're available. Stop calling every single request urgent. Write one paragraph in your own cadence. Creative freedom doesn't start with the dramatic door slam. It begins as a small, deliberate refusal to be perfectly legible to the system.
This resolves a major dilemma we all face. You might think you need to be the rebel, or you need to be the good soldier. But if the system can easily predict your rebellion, it already owns the script. Both the rebel and the soldier are roles the hairball completely understands and can manage. The error isn't which role you choose. The error is letting the hairball cast you in the first place.
You mistook drainage for duty. Your best ideas weren't circling the drain because you were weak. They were circling because you mistook drainage for duty. You thought creative room would magically appear after you provided total service to the calendar. But room only appears when you actively draw a boundary while you are still deeply needed.
Section 4. Tuning your creative tension.
Shrinkage often wears the clothes of loyalty. It keeps the peace. It says, hey, smart people adapt. But waiting for perfect permission turns your original work into a mere rumor about what you could have done. This trained reflex of waiting for approval must be intentionally broken.
Practice needs a threshold. You cross the threshold of this book by making the invisible rule visible. You choose your distance. You let the string sing under pressure. You don't cut the string, and you don't let it go slack. You tune it.
Orbit, don't tangle. Before tomorrow, I want you to name one hairball rule you obey without belief. Continue the internal transformation at upgowise.com. Spend 300 seconds drawing your orbital boundary before your signature fades, because if you don't define your orbit now, what part of your brilliance are you agreeing to sacrifice tomorrow?